Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show, to our weekly EV podcast. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome, everybody.
So the image behind us here is a Ferrari, the new Ferrari. And if you remember, we reported on this last week, actually, that Ferrari and Maranello was coming out with their full electric car October 9th of this year. Chairman John Elkann says that the car is going to be called the Elettrica. That's Elettrica. I think that's the Italian spelling.
Yes.
And they say it promise, at least, that it won't stray too far from Ferrari's DNA. It's still about performance, design, raw emotion, just with a cleaner edge.
Well, I want to see what it looks like when it comes out. The news reports, I think we're going to start off with what the news reports are saying about it.
Right. There's an article, and the headline on this is, Ferrari is developing fake gear shifts for its EVs. And then the description is a little bit kinder, and it goes like this. Ferrari is working on a system to simulate engines and transmissions for its EVs, and it may even mimic historic engines. So here's the rest of the article. The first EV will have its own sound signature, they say. And a videographer earlier this year caught a Ferrari EV prototype in Italy driving around Maranello, making an engine-like sound. And that's probably the best description, I think, of what this is going to end up being like. A reasonable facsimile. So they continue. They are working on a virtual engine. Get that, virtual engine. We're no longer talking about a 12-cylinder with all of the nuts and bolts and all of the magnificent engineering that they are capable of.
Right.
And a virtual gear shift system for this EV. And they're going for a couple of patents. One patent describes a system for the electric vehicle that uses an electric motor to simulate the torque output of an internal combustion engine and the gear shifts of a gear transmission. Now, this is reminiscent of, the ICE engines don't have full torque when you step on the accelerator, whereas the EVs do. So what are they going to do? Delay this thing, make it feel more like an ICE engine?
I don't know.
But they're getting a patent for whatever it is they're hatching here. They say the torque output from the motor is defined by the position of the accelerator pedal and the virtual gear. So the driver can actuate virtual gear shifts via steering column paddles, as in other Ferrari models. Mm-hmm. The other patent is it describes an audio control system for such an EV with both interior and exterior speakers that reproduce a digitally generated sound that corresponds with virtual engine and transmission models. Well, there's a mouthful, right?
Oh, my gosh.
The sound can be a historical, modern, or futuristic, or adrenaline-filled, or a relaxed sound based on driver preferences. And the system also has specific sounds for gear shifts. So the patent also details methods for recording the sound of internal combustion engine cars and attempting to replicate that.
I have to go here, though. How long before somebody hacks into the system?
Okay.
And mashes up the Tesla fart sounds.
Exactly. I know where you're going with that. Yeah. Much to the dismay of the wealthy gentleman that is attempting to impress someone with his Ferrari and the magnificent sound that it makes.
I hear relaxing sounds, and that was the first thing that came to mind.
Right. The company says over and over again that it wants its EVs to match the emotional experience of its traditional internal combustion engine cars, and this system appears to be a great way to do it.
So it's supposed to be okay to have piped-in sound as long as you have fake gear shifts to go along with it, too.
So there were some interesting comments, actually, from the readers of this article, and I'm going to show you three of the ones that were the most relevant here. This one is, they have the money at Ferrari to put a real multi-speed gearbox in an EV, right? So why fake it? Well, there is a compelling reason to stay away from gears and clutches in an EV, and it's because of the enormous amount of torque available.
Right.
Tesla actually learned that early on with the Tesla Roadster. They had a 2-speed gearbox at one point with clutch plates. And Borg Warner finally said, look, you guys are just burning up these clutch plates. We're just going to give you one gear, no transmission, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole idea of the gears is to be able to generate more power at low torque settings. But when you have instant full 100% torque, why?
Yeah. And then what you're giving up by having a single speed gearbox is you're now limited to the RPMs of the electric motor, which is finite.
Right.
And if you really want a 200 mile per hour plus car, you're going to have to gear that because you're not going to get enough RPMs out of that stationary motor.
Yeah.
Okay, Pete, I have a question for you, though.
Yeah.
As someone that owned a Ferrari for a while, when you get into your Ferrari, do you want just the most powerful, fastest 0 to 60, 0 to 100? Or is there like a Ferrari experience?
That's probably the best phrase, the Ferrari experience. First of all, what you have is usually a red tan, a brightly colored sports car that is easily distinguished on the road from anything else on the road. And then you have the tactile sensations, working the clutch, for example, with the gearbox and, your shifter. All of that is an experience. And then finally, the sound. There's a very distinctive sound that comes with performance engines like this. It's not your average rice burner where you have an annoying raspy sound, or a Harley motorcycle that you're wishing that he's no longer sitting left of you at a red light because you have to roll up your windows in order to be able to stay sane.
Right.
But they go to great lengths with these exotic cars to finely tune the exhaust notes into basically a symphony type sound that resonates with the people that spend this much money on cars. So it's like you said, Jesse, it is an experience. Now, will Ferrari be able to replicate that with a electronic sound? I'm just not convinced. Of course, I'm not a skeptic, but I'd certainly love to see them pull it off. And then, of course, you have speakers inside and outside.
Well, so do you think this is like a bunch of ICE executives in a boardroom that are scared of losing their core audience, or do you think that they're actually some engineers that are trying to recapture that Ferrari experience for the next generation?
I think you summarize both. I think that the exotic car world is very concerned about being able to keep their mystique and their experience for the types of people that want this. And then you have engineers that are scrambling to try to make it a reality. You know what this is reminiscent of for me? As kids, we used to take playing cards, with a clothespin and clamp that onto the rear portion of our bike and let the spokes make that motor sound. This is what this is reminiscent of to me.
Yep.
So anyway, here's two more comments. This guy says, fake gears, fake sounds, fake feedback equals fake experience. And the final one that I thought was my favorite here, he says, kind of like when the automobile was first created. If the tech existed then, they could have added a device to make simulated horse whinny sounds to make the transition from horse and buggy easier.
That he's hitting on something there. And the idea is Ferrari can make a new experience. They can still make the Ferrari experience, but they can make it a new experience. We just don't know exactly how that's going to look yet. I'm interested to see how this turns out.
Yeah.
But it does not necessarily have to be an engine sound. It can be something new. Today, the engine sound defines it. In just like the potato sound defines a Harley.
Yeah.
But in 15 years, when 70% of all cars are EVs, there's going to be something else that defines the Ferrari sound. It won't be the engine.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. And of course, it's all about conditioning. You know, we have been used to having a certain aura surround a performance car, and we have an expectation of a certain sound. In the future, that may be completely different, like you say. Do you remember in the Star Wars movies, the pod racer sound, the beep, beep,
Oh,
beep
yes.
going? Yeah, that was a cool sound as well. So, you know, Ferrari isn't the only one that's struggling with this. Hyundai was the first to implement this type of system in an EV, emulating an 8,000 RPM turbocharged 4-cylinder and 8-speed dual-clutched gearbox in the Ioniq 5. I didn't know that. They said that this would give a similar sensation to a combustion, or it was a similar sensation as to a combustion engine, and the car can either do automated manual shifts or driver-controlled manual shifts via paddles behind the steering wheels.
The Hyundai's already done this, in other words.
They have, yeah. Now, of course, we have to consider that these are not high-performance engines. You know, you get up into the couple thousand horsepower, I'm not sure that you're going to be able to make the kind of clutch plates that you need in an EV in order to, you know, keep this thing or make the shifting work.
Yeah.
Dodge, they say, also has an external and internal device to produce noise for the new Charger Daytona EV. And they call it the fratsonic chambered exhaust, but it's purely an aural system with no simulated torque outputs or gear shifts. And then BMW has said it's developing something like the Hyundai system, but Porsche, on the other hand, has been clear it won't do anything like this itself.
Yeah, like I said, we'll just wait to see how this comes out. R.C. Robinson-san has joined us this morning. Welcome back. Glad to have you here. It's not a great idea. Haha, he's upvoted us.
Mm-hmm. And then he also says, exotic supercar world has been crushed forever, in my opinion, guys. Quite possibly, yes. Or changed.
Well, yeah, very possibly. When your four-door grocery getter has a 2.8 second 0 to 60 and a top speed of 140 or 150 miles an hour, okay.
That was the beginning of the end, was it not?
It really
When you think
was.
about it, yeah. This car, by the way, the Electrica that Ferrari's coming out with, it will debut this year, and deliveries begin in 2026, so next year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We're doing things a little bit differently with the questions today, so bear with us. We've got them live streaming up there, so we'll be able to see them as they come in, and no one's retyping it. All right. So another one here is a headline. I'm going to bring up a picture for you here. Bring that up. Screen. There we go. Right. So the Chinese cars go from announced to on the road very quickly.
And when he says very quickly, you have no idea. AITO, AITO, it's the car company made by Highway, announced their 3-row extended range electric vehicle. So basically, it's a type of hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
They announced this in March. It is already on showroom floors. It can be ordered, and customers can take delivery immediately. So no more than 6 weeks from the time the model was first announced until it's sitting in customer driveways.
So we're saying we continue to be very impressed with what the Chinese are able to do.
Yes, I continue to be impressed by what they're doing. A lot of this, obviously, is that we've got somebody in China, a company in China that's developing a vehicle, and they're simply not announcing it out to the world until they're ready to send it out to the world.
Yeah.
You know, the term that's been coined now for this is called China speed. This M8, it's seat 7. It has, get this, a 935-mile range.
Wow. Okay.
On one fuel tank / battery.
Right.
And it starts at just under $50,000.
Amazing.
And seating for 7.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm going to throw another picture up here. The U.S. is responding a bit. This is a vehicle called the Slate, and it's making a lot of headlines right now, the Slate truck. The article goes something like this. Ask anybody and they'll tell you that new cars are just too expensive. In the wake of tariffs shaking the auto industry, with the Trump administration pledging to kill the federal EV incentive, the situation isn't looking to get better soon, especially for anybody who wants battery power or EVs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is what Slate Auto is doing now. Meet the Slate Truck, they say. It is a sub $20,000, after federal tax incentives, by the way, electric vehicle that will enter production next year. It only seats 2. It has a bed big enough, however, to hold a sheet of plywood, a 4x8 sheet of plywood. It only does 150 miles on a charge, which, by the way, isn't that bad. For those of us that drive Tesla Roadsters with legacy battery packs, that's about the ranges that we're getting.
Yeah.
And, if you make it a round town car, you never really get any range anxiety. So it only comes in one color, gray. And the only way to listen to music while it's driving is if you bring along your phone and a Bluetooth speaker. It's what's called the bare minimum of what a modern car can be. And yet it's taken 3 years of development to get to this point. But this is more than bargain basement motoring. Slate, they say, is representing a truck as a minimalist design with a do-it-yourself purpose. An attempt to not just go cheap, but create a brand new category of vehicle. This design also enables a low-cost approach to manufacturing, and here's where we're going to get into some more detail. This is pretty fascinating. And it's catching the eye of major investors like Jeff Bezos, allegedly. It will be engineered and manufactured in America. But, they say, is this extreme simplification just too much for American consumers? Well, they say that if you wander through any automotive design studio anywhere in the world, you're inevitably going to come across a mood board or two, sweeping collages of striking photos that are meant to align the creative flows of the passerby. These are tools for helping a disparate design team create a cohesive product, but where many such mood boards feature glamour shots of exotic roads and beautiful people, front and center of this Slate's mood board was something different. A big, gray, dark shark covered in scrapes and scars.
Yeah.
So, and it looks like the shark, they say, has been in more than just one brawl. But here's where the real kicker is regarding the savings on a vehicle like this. Instead of steel or aluminum, the Slate truck's body panels are molded of plastic, or as Slate calls them, there's a euphemism for plastic, injection molded polypropylene composite material. It sounds much better than plastic, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does.
So the theory is that this makes them more durable and scratch resistant. And if only because of the lack of paint, no paint, means they're one color all the way through. So audio enthusiasts of a certain age will remember the same approach was used by the now defunct Saturn Corporation, and it was a manufacturing technique that never caught on across the industry back then. So Slate continues this theme now, Spartan theme, through to upholstery too. A heathered textile, they call it, that is designed to get better looking as it wears.
Very interesting.
The idea, they say, is to lean into aged aesthetic. Now let's talk about some of the costs. What's less commonly known, they say, is just how expensive it is to paint cars. Creating a facility that can reliably, quickly, and cleanly lay down a quality coat of color on automotive body parts is a complicated task. And that task has only gotten more complicated and thus expensive in recent years with greater environmental regulations and consumer expectations, forcing manufacturers to find ways to offer more vibrant hues with less ecological impact. You mentioned most cars, or some cars nowadays, get wrapped anyway.
A lot of cars nowadays are getting wrapped anyway.
Mm-hmm. For example, they give some cost estimates here. It turns out Mercedes-Benz just announced it is building the next generation paint job at its Sindelfingen plant in Germany. The estimates placed on this thing's cost is nearly $1 billion. So, by eliminating paint, and thus by eliminating a paint shop, Slate's manufacturing process is massively simplified. So too, the lack of metal body parts. We have no paint shop, we have no stamping. And stamping machinery typically requires a extremely high ceiling, which requires a higher, larger production facility. And with this type of injection molding of plastic, it's going to save a lot of money. It looks like we've got some comments here.
We have a couple comments we'll get to and then get back to this. First, we have PYGKLB. He was saying, I expect to see this as an upgrade from JC Whitney or its modern equivalent when he was talking about the speakers. And he also said the slate looked interesting, but it carries a 4x8 sheet of plywood the same way that a short bed Hilux does. Tailgate down and above the wheels.
Okay, fair enough. So, yeah, it's actually a 6-foot bed, basically, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. TikTok Fernando says, it really is a truck for the poor. And YouTube Shorts, Michael Aldia. Well, thanks for joining us, Michael. He says they are trying to cater to their audience.
Which I think could be a big audience. I did a little research, too, besides this article. That pickup truck looks to be about the size of the 1985 Toyota SR5. So you think of the little pickups that used to be in the marketplace. Toyota had their compact pickup. Ford had a Courier. Japan had the Datsun.
Chevy S10, we had one of those.
The little Chevy S10 was close in size to that. The early S10s were. That's about what the pickup looks like. The SUV, if you configure it as an SUV, it's going to come in somewhere around the size of maybe either a Kia Soul or a Jeep Comanche hardtop. What I thought was most interesting in the article that I saw was when Slate rolled out their announcement, they brought out their pickup, and then they brought out several other variations with some of the wraps and things and options that they had. But the base pickup, they sat off to the side of the stage, and a group of engineers, while they were doing the presentation, proceeded to add an SUV top, wrap it, change out the wheels, give it an entirely different look. And by the time the presentation was over an hour later, they were done.
Really? Amazing, huh?
So that's kind of the thing about the Slate, is that it's supposed to be a do-it-yourself.
And brace yourselves, NADA. How can you buy one, they say? It should come as no surprise that Slate will follow Tesla's footsteps by offering direct sales.
Yes.
Forget about dealerships. No nationwide network of dealerships is planned. Instead, a limited set of pickup centers will pop up as needed based on pre-order data. Or if you don't mind paying a little bit more, home delivery will be available. And, they didn't mention this, but if Jeff Bezos is involved, why can't you buy this on Amazon?
Oh, don't be surprised if you can eventually.
And a home delivery to come with it, right?
Yeah. We've got a couple more. We've got Finks Automotive. I think they're the ones that turned us onto the Slate this last week, aren't they?
I believe so. Yeah, that was Dave, maybe?
He said the Slate could work. Of course, it does depend on the actual selling price. Remember, the Cybertruck was supposed to be $39,000.
Right.
Good point.
Yep. And Instagram, that studio guy says, looks like an interesting aesthetic, like the 80s truck.
Yeah, very much like one.
Yeah.
Personally, I didn't care for the look of the small pickup very much, but when they put the hardtop on it, it's a totally different vehicle. And they've got, between the wraps that they have and some of the hard tops or configurations they have, it's actually a pretty spiffy looking vehicle. And you can extend the battery to get a larger battery that's 230-mile range too.
Right. So I have an image I just popped up here. I wanted to show you guys a project that we took on about a year or so ago. This is a 3-wheeler solo EV. And we are looking into the reason that over 1,000 of these were crushed because they had propulsion problems under power. And NHTSA gave them a certain amount of time to resolve it, didn't get done in time, and the investors bailed, and next thing you know, cars are getting crushed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a replay of the EV1 debacle when GM in the last century crushed, over 1,000 EV1s.
Yes.
This is a test mule that we have here, and we decided to put a logo on it. And what we have here is Victor applying the logo. For those of you interested in what the future of this car is, it is reemerging as a 4th generation vehicle now. We're working on the 3rd generation, attempting to sort out what the propulsion problem is so that the 4th generation design doesn't have this problem.
Right.
And if you're interested in more information about this 3-wheeler single commuter car, solo.car is where you can go. They just launched their website. They're being built in Barcelona, Spain currently. Some will be available in the U.S. by the end of this year, and they'll be available for purchase next year in the U.S. if everything goes well. So have some images here. I took this thing out Sunday, took it up to Camelback Mountain, and you can see it's very slim in the back.
Yeah.
I get a fair share of attention when I test drive Roadsters, but I must admit this thing gets more attention than the Roadster. You see people in your side view mirror. By the way, there's no rear view mirror in this because there's only one windshield and one seat. But you see them holding up cell phones, getting pictures of the back of the car. Sometimes I pull alongside to get side views. And of course, you usually have a conversation once you park it somewhere. What is that, But anyway, these are some shots from Sunday. And then I took it up to the Biltmore Mansion. The Biltmore has very strict parking regulations. There's a lot of valet activity there. And what I like to do is bypass all of that and sneak up to the very top to get some beautiful pictures of the elevated portions. And oftentimes I get stopped by the valet guys saying, "No, you can't do that, Well, in this case, I snuck all the way to the top, and a valet guy comes over, and he looks at me, and he says, "Gruber?" He says, "My dad worked for you for many years. Do you remember Willie Amadeo?"
Yes.
Yeah, Cabler, right?
Yes.
And it turns out this is one of his kids. I remember when he would bring them to the picnics or whatever, and here he is, a grown man, with a job. So anyway, after we established the connection, I had no problem having free reign of the place, and I got some cool images up there at the Biltmore Mansion with this 3-wheeler solo car. There's the west side of the building, and here's the east side looking south. And you can see Phoenix right here. So you've got some really nice elevation up there. For those of you in the Phoenix area or coming here, this is a great place. There's a restaurant here. This is Camelback Mountain right here. That little protrusion is the Praying Monk, which is a local site that people talk about. So anyway, there you have it. There's the Solo up at the Biltmore Mansion. And we will be reporting on what the progress is resolving this propulsion problem with this 3rd-generation vehicle.
Well, and I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to get this particular issue solved.
Mm-hmm. So we've got an article about Stellantis and the solid-state battery.
Yes. Stellantis has come out and has said that they've been working with a company named Factorial on developing an automotive-sized solid-state battery, and they've now announced that battery is basically ready for prime time. That's ready to put into vehicles. One of the biggest breakthroughs that they had recently was the ability of the solid-state battery to work in a wider temperature range.
Mm-hmm.
So it can now go from as low as minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 30 degrees Celsius, operating range all the way up to 113 degrees Fahrenheit. It also has a very impressive 375 watt hours per kilogram of energy density. Typical lithium ion is 200 to 300, and typical LFP is about 150 to 200 watt hours per kilogram. It doesn't have as many charge cycles as a lithium ion yet. They have only about 600 charge cycles in the expected life of the battery, where lithium ion's about 2,000 charge cycles. But they do have the ability to do rapid charging. And they believe they can charge the battery from 15% to over 90% in under 20 minutes. My biggest question personally on this battery is about the heat. See, last year in Phoenix, we had 70 days of 110 or above ambient air temperature. All concentrated, of course, in the summer and early fall months. The battery is going to sit closer down toward the ground where we know to be as much as 20 or 30 degrees hotter. So how are they going to keep the battery cool in a hot climate area like Phoenix, where virtually every day of summertime, your battery is going to be sitting in an environment that's well above that 113 degree threshold?
Sure. Now, what Mark is talking about here is with the streets, of course, being black asphalt, there's an enormous amount of radiant heat that gets built up. And with these batteries sitting 8 to 10 inches above that surface, especially at a red light, for example, it's going to contribute to not only the ambient 115, 120 degree temperatures, but all that radiant heat.
Yeah, it's not unusual for asphalt temperatures to get as much as 170 to 190 degrees in the middle of the summer here in Phoenix. And all across the southern U.S., you're going to have temperatures that easily exceed that 120 degree threshold.
And that's why we have pictures in Phoenix of people making eggs on the sidewalk or baking cookies on their dash.
Well, did you have any cookies last summer?
No, I didn't.
Oh, there were a couple of occasions last summer where we had people in the comm group take cookies out, set them in their car at breakfast time when they got to work, and then at lunchtime they would bring the cookies in and we'd have hot cookies for lunch.
I missed that, yeah. Well, it's quite doable. What is interesting about this article, too, is it looks like Stellantis, who is definitely not yet an EV-heavy manufacturer or, knowledgeable, is teaming up with another company, and this is Factorial Energy, which is one of the best ways for any of these companies to, migrate into the EV space. And that would really be my suggestion to the Italian exotics.
Definitely.
It took you 80 years to get the perfection that you have in ICE, technology. Maybe if you partner with someone on the EV technology and get some licensing in process. Lucid comes to mind, for example. Can you imagine a Lucid teamed up with Ferrari or Lamborghini type car?
I could imagine that, and that would be an awesome car.
Yeah, it would have instant street credibility without the concerns about did these guys really get it right.
Well, and the Italian engineers are so sophisticated. Lucid is the one EV manufacturer that can match that sophistication.
Sure. And it hits home for us. We work on LaFerraris, and the ICE portion of that car is absolutely flawless in so many ways. But the battery systems, the hybrid systems in that car, well, let's just say there were definitely some things lacking there.
Definitely.
Right.
Hey, Pete, I have a question for you. Why don't we see Tesla buying up companies like Slate?
Because they don't have to, Jesse, would be my take on it. I think that there's a level of arrogance within Tesla that I'm familiar with, working with them for years. Yeah. They're very confident that they can do it themselves and do it better.
I guess that makes sense, yeah.
I think that's probably a
they want
philosophy.
Full control from start to finish, and
and I hear Elon's name oftentimes mentioned in that kind of philosophy.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's see if we have anything else here. Got China's new supercharging EV makes electric car charging as fast as pump gas cars. Let's see if we can get that article up here for you. Well, guess I don't have it. All right. Well, the way this article reads is that BYD, they call them China's top electric EV maker, has just taken a major leap forward by unveiling a new Super E platform that has ultra-fast charging speeds up to 1,000 kilowatts. It's twice as fast as Tesla's, they say. And in a live-streamed event from Shenzhen headquarters, founders Wang Chuanfu claimed that this innovation could allow EVs to gain 400 kilometers, around 250 miles, of range in just 5 minutes, making it nearly as quick as filling a gas tank.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you get done with that Slurpee, it's probably even faster.
Very possible.
So the price of this is going to be 270,000 yuan, which is about $37,300. In a first, the company also announced plans to build its own national charging network with over 4,000 ultra-fast charging stations planned across China. We were just talking earlier about the Chinese really don't let any grass grow under their feet, and they typically overachieve in areas like this. I mean, we talked a couple of weeks ago about their railroad network throughout the country.
Right.
And in the span of a couple, 3 decades, they have crisscrossed the country with high-speed rail. It happens quickly there.
Well, if the China speed thing is to be believed in this area too, they probably just opened their first charging station yesterday.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
They move. We know that on rapid charging that the state of the battery or the size of the battery does have a difference as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because for EV technology, there's basically 2 charge states. There's one that's called a constant current charge. Your charger is putting out maximum amperage, maximum current, and maximum voltage. And then there is a fixed voltage stage where the charger is putting out constant voltage, but it's reducing the amperage because it doesn't want the batteries to get too hot. Batteries that go from, say, 10 to about 60% state of charge can do constant current. The batteries are able to accept all the electricity that's coming into them without heating up too much. This promotes the idea of larger battery packs, even for efficient sedans, because you could increase the rate of charging for a longer time period. And I'm going to use Lucid as an example. They've advertised 900-volt charging architecture.
Mm-hmm.
That charging architecture on their 450-mile range Gravity or their 500-mile range Lucid Air, they could potentially put 250 miles of charge into that car if they have the charging infrastructure in 5 minutes today, mm-hmm. because they do a 900-volt architecture.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very impressive because the fact is we don't have that yet today on American soil.
Right. So look for charging stations throughout China, and BYD is at the helm of this. Another article here. This one surprised me. A massive sales decline struck America's sports car. What they're talking about here is sales for the Chevrolet Corvette. The sales data in for Q1 of 2025 indicates that that the Corvette isn't doing so hot. A massive sales decline, they say, which is nicknamed the America's sports car, the Corvette, is being felt. In Q1, sales dropped 21% to 6,700 vehicles, almost 6,800. And they say that's a big drop for a vehicle that already isn't moving many units. Now, for comparison's sake, Chevy has seen over 40,000 Silverado sales every month in 2025. So that other line seems to be doing well, but the Corvette was the biggest loser in the sports car category. But it's not just Chevrolet, it turns out. Ford Mustang sales fell 32% in Q1 of 2025. They sold just 9,300 pony cars. Meanwhile, Dodge's redesigned electric Charger is basically not selling. Dodge moved 1,900 in 2025 of the Charger so far. So interesting. I don't know what the dynamic there is. I don't think it's been replaced by Chinese sports cars, but something's up.
Something is definitely up. That's surprising to see. I mean, the 2025 Charger, which is their EV model, it's selling at about the same rate as the Lucid Air.
Yeah, good point.
Ooh.
All right. Dave Fink is chiming in. He says, I've been waiting 10 years for QuantumScape to get it together. VW and Bezos and nothing yet. He also says the Slate could work. Of course, it depends on the actual selling price. He reminds us the Cybertruck was supposed to be $3,900.
39,000, you mean?
Oh, 39,000. Yes, I'll have to zero.
I'd buy a Cybertruck for 3,900 potentially.
Yep. All right, and then Instagram, the Wagners asks any comments on the Tello.
I saw that in the, as I was doing research on the Slate truck this morning, and I haven't seen anything recently on Tello. It's a very interesting looking truck. It reminds me a lot of what the Canoe truck was going to look like, but I just haven't heard much in the press on it yet.
Right. And, speaking of some of these EV manufacturers, remember last week we reported that Lucid purchased assets from Nikola. And, of course, the suspicion initially was, does that mean they're getting into semis? Nothing could be further from the truth. They were just merely picking up bargain basement assets, production equipment, test equipment, that sort of thing. And we haven't heard any further updates since then, but if we do, we'll definitely report on that.
It hit me this last week, too. 800,000 square feet of manufacturing space down in Coolidge for $30 million.
Yeah, that's a heck of a deal, isn't it?
That's like 5 cents on the dollar that they got that space for.
Right.
And Coolidge is within like 20 miles of their main plant in Casa Grande.
Correct. Yeah.
So they basically, for $30 million, they picked up a whole nother manufacturing plant located essentially in the same vicinity as where they're at now.
This is reminiscent of Tesla picking up the NUMMI plant up in Fremont for $50 million.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. Well, I think that our social media guys have some content for you guys as well. Which one of you wants to go first, Cass or Aaron?
I can go first.
Camera, action, lights.
Sorry, the camera decided to take the day off.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that Aaron's camera is a little finicky. It gets throws a temper tantrum when it's not used very often, and then it shuts itself off.
Is it one of those repurposed family cameras that we put into play here as a streaming?
I think it might be, actually.
There he is.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, you're live.
Sweet. So Ford has developed a new battery cell, and they've actually been quietly rolling it out, and it's going to go into some test cars here pretty soon. So Ford has developed an LMR battery. They're calling it the game changer for their vehicles. The LMR stands for lithium manganese rich cell. So this is going to be their second generation cells. It looks like it's going to be in the newer Mach-E's, Lightnings, and then some newer vehicles that are going to come out, like the Transits and the new Super Duty that they've been kind of hush-hush on and working on. So the advantages over this, because they've been using, their first generations have been the nickel-based chemistries, and then they slowly been going into like the lithium, the LMF, I think is what they've been using now on some of the newer ones. But the advantage over this is the improved safety and stability. Should have some more energy density, longer drive range, and cost reduction. However, in the past, this technology has not been commercialized because it seems to lose capacity very quickly. And when it does, especially in extreme heat, and when it does, it has a tendency to become unstable with its durability and thermal runaways. So that's kind of an interesting thing that they figured out how to do that when nobody else has. So they're keeping it kind of hush-hush right now on exactly when they're going to be able to roll this out. But like I said, they do have it in some of their test cars as of right now. And Pete, if you want to roll up, I think pick one.
Oh, you know what? Let me get back in it. I just got out of it forgetting that you're going to want images loaded up here. Give me about 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, no problem. And let's see here. Ford is producing the cells. They feel like that they have solved all these disadvantages. When asked about like the longevity of this, they basically keep on saying to be determined. So it is going out for real world testing. And they feel like they're going to continue the LFP batteries, which are currently into the Mustang Mach-E's and in the Lightnings, but those newer vehicles are going to get these new battery cells. That's kind of the reason why we haven't seen Ford come out with a lot of new vehicles yet. I think this technology is kind of holding them back, but holding them back for the good. It sounds like this second generation of EVs is really going to put them over the hump with a lot of new features and stuff. And like I said, the new Super Duty's pretty much on its way. They think that they can get this technology and these new models and vehicles up by 2025. So I'm sorry, 2026. They think late 2026 you'll start seeing these vehicles and start seeing some sneak peeks. Definitely before the decade is over, you'll see this newer battery technology and these newer vehicles out.
Okay.
So some good news for Ford.
Yeah, I've got your image number 1 up. Do you want number 2 as well?
Oh yeah, sorry, number 2. Yeah. So that's kind of their behind the scenes so far. Like I said, they're keeping this very hush hush. I think they feel like they're onto something, that they figured out how to commercialize this lithium manganese rich cell, and they're hoping that this is going to put them over the edge, especially in the truck market.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Aaron. Cass, what have you got for us?
Hold on, you go ahead. I'm working on your cam.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I've got Kawasaki's Corleo or Corleo, I think is how you pronounce
Okay,
it.
here we go. And
It is very uncanny. I initially thought it was an April Fool's joke because I found it early in April. And I'm still not convinced it's real. And I am not excited about this thing at all because you know how I am about robots. And this is basically a robotic horse. I was talking to Jesse about this for a little bit when I found it.
thing's sweet.
And it can literally go off-road anywhere. It's hydrogen based, so it's got that the canisters for the hydrogen fuel.
Well, you know, it seems to make sense, Cass, because there are places that wheels just can't go.
Yeah, that was Jesse's argument as well.
It was. Okay.
Yeah, but we also have horses, like real ones,
Yeah.
that you can like feed and love and pet and doesn't feel like metal and look real because they are.
So picture a mountain goat, all right, going up those steep, crevices. You can't do that with wheels.
No, true.
And if you could ride a mountain goat, this is probably the equivalent of that. Can you guys think of some other places that wheels would have a hard time traversing, where legs like this would be more efficient?
Nowhere.
No?
Maybe sandy situations.
Sand? Okay, there you go. Yeah, getting bogged down at the beach, for example. Yeah.
Possible sand situations. If you're going through more of a wilderness setting, there are a lot of places where the variation in terrain, soft to hard.
Shrubs. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, that's what those little rubber feet are for. So the little black parts
Yeah.
is all made of like specialized rubber that's supposed to be able to handle pretty much all terrain.
So you're saying that you wouldn't have to feed this.
No, but you would have to fuel it.
You'd have to fuel it, yeah. Okay. And you could still show it some love, I suppose, don't you think, Cass?
No.
No, okay.
It's still, I mean, it is equipped with an AI system that enhances the balance and the navigation of it. But no.
All right.
I'm
So
good.
you've got some other images here. Oh my
Yeah.
God, there's the frontal one.
Yeah, so that's the front. That actually is what they displayed when they debuted this thing. And it's still in its concept phase of development. There's no like functioning prototype. Any videos that you see of it is all animation based, AI based. Like it's not real. It's not really in production yet, or even close to being in production. The robot itself is supposed to respond to the body movements of the rider like a horse. So if you're riding a horse, if you lean one way or tug on the reins one way, the horse is going to go that way. Same with the other way. If you kind of lean back a little bit, tug it back, it'll go backwards. Same concept for this, except for this is not real at all right now.
Well, let's call it a concept vehicle.
Yeah.
I
don't
think,
like it.
I don't think Cass wants this to be real. Are we getting that?
Well,
It's not real. But yeah, it's
I'm gonna date myself here. That frontal picture reminds me of Battlestar Galactica, the robot Cylons,
yep.
Oh yeah.
mixed in with a Monster Energy drink.
Yep. I
Oh,
see it.
yeah, I see the monster.
I see it.
Very cool.
It is driven by a 150cc engine powered by hydrogen fuel cells. So they're still kind of leaning towards the hydrogen aspect of it, which I still kind of think is a little silly because I think just going straight electric is the way to go, regardless of if you want this weird horse thing or if you want like an actual electric motorcycle.
Right.
I don't like it. I don't even like the Boston Dynamics dogs, which by the way they started using at the Epic Universe theme park for the Isle of Berk.
Yeah. Have you seen those things parkour, including the robots, though? I mean, I thought the humans doing that sort of a gymnastic sport were impressive. But man, these robots are beginning to really take it to the next level.
And I like what PYGKLB says. He says, this is a real iron horse.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
All right. Well, Cass, we get that. It is not likable.
For me, it's not likable. I could see the appeal. I see both sides of it. You know, I see how people would think this is really cool and would like to like try it out and stuff. But you are going to have to wait until 2050 because it is still a concept. It's not like in production or even close to being so. As far as any more detailed specifications, they haven't released anything yet because it's still a concept vehicle. I just, you know me, I don't like robots. I'm not a huge fan of AI. This is something that I never thought I'd have to cover, but I did for you guys. You're welcome.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Yes.
You know, this kind of brings some mental images to mind for me. What if we juxtaposed old ways of doing warfare with this new technology? Can you imagine, knights in shining armor? Jousting with something like this. Exactly, Cass. Yeah.
And as they make the turn to charge, it runs out of hydrogen and just stops and falls over.
Yeah.
Can I bring this in as a pet?
No.
Just park it next to Cass?
Please don't.
Well, it sounds like we've had a fun morning this morning for the EV podcast. I love those speakers, by the way, on the back of that Ferrari.
Oh, yes.
I mean, AI just nailed it. I asked it, I said, give me a Ferrari, the rear end of a Ferrari with some absurdly mounted speakers on the back replicating what they are going to call an exhaust tone. And it didn't disappoint. This kind of really reinforces the absurdity of that whole concept. What's wrong with quiet vehicles?
Yeah.
But we're not warmed up to that yet. Well, anyway, thank you so much for joining us, all of you that chimed in. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Have a great day.